Billy Ray.
What's up, bud?
How you doing?
We're doing all right. I was on my lunch break and I figured I see this, I might as well jump on for a few minutes.
Yeah, Paul Vanderklay usually streams at this hour, but he's been away and nobody's been streaming, and I figured I might stream and see if people want to talk. What was I gonna? I was gonna check. Let's see. Um, yeah, you haven't logged in with your new spiffy new admin account yet.
So let me tell you this funny stuff. I gotta get my what's up, Jonathan? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing
I
well.
I gotta break out my laptop because when I tried to log into the StreamYard, you click on the link on your the on my email,
Mm.
send me there, and then it would email me the digit pin that I gotta put in. Well, when I go to check my email to get the digit pin, well then it completely wipes out the link that I was just on to put it in. And so a couple times of that, I said, "The hell with this! I'll get my laptop out later on in the day and have
You'll figure it
emails
out.
between two different devices." Yeah.
Yeah, I kicked a bunch of people off my StreamYard because um, I they weren't using it, and the ones who were using it, they knew enough how to use it that it was like, okay, you guys can go on and use your own StreamYard now. And so now I do have a few StreamYard seats. So if people want to learn how to use StreamYard, I am willing to allow people. Now I have a few seats to hand out. So that's what I'm doing with Billy Ray. Hopefully, he'll be learning how to do the StreamYard tingy.
Yeah, I mean, the StreamYard thing sounds cool. I just got to figure out how to do it with my phone versus like a computer. Is I'm running all the time. Most time when I find time to record videos or talk online, I'm in my truck or my office, right, or my excavator.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little easier to use it on a thing. Um, yeah, I think my voice is kind of echoing somehow. Yeah, let me check. I'm gonna check one thing. Is it still echoing? Yeah, my voice is echoing off of Billy's microphone. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah, that's what's going on.
oh yeah,
I
I
guess I
echo
can
too,
mute.
Yeah.
but Billy doesn't echo.
Well,
So
I can mute it.
that happens when your mic is picking up also from your speakers. So usually what you need to do is headphones. That's probably best. Yeah, if you have them.
I finally got a good pair. Let's see if the mic works on them. How about that? Is that better?
Am
Can you hear
I?
me?
Yeah. So that echo went away.
All right, good.
Hey Chad, you can jump on if you want. If you can, I don't know. You might be busy.
Hey man, you know what's cool about being a Noahide?
What's cool about being in Ohio?
I can have gas station hot dogs and not worry about them not being kosher.
Yeah, yeah. Hey Nathaniel. So what are we talking about?
Well, I got a whole laundry list of things I could talk about, but I don't want to take over the stream. So, you got anything, Jonathan?
No, take over the stream. I came to just say hi to you.
Oh man, you know I hadn't got a chance to congratulate you, brother. Uh, Being able to go to New York like that and it working out. I was gonna congratulate you, and then the war kicked off, and I wasn't sure, that
Yeah, sorry about
you
that.
know, that's not your fault.
I didn't know the timing was suspicious.
Yeah, auspicious indeed. But the stream I was listening to, the last one. um, Andrew said something that kind of sparked me a little bit, talking about he made a sideways comment about how easy it is not to steal, right? Like, the seven laws is a simple task indeed, and it's funny that people in first world countries that didn't grow up, starving, um, think that not stealing and not killing and not beating people is an easy task to pull off. You know, our
That's
first
part of
world.
it, but there's even more. Like, there's also such things as stealing from your boss, you know?
Right.
And when you take things seriously, you find out seriously in the way of not will just anybody else say anything about it, but do I think God would disapprove? That makes
Right.
things a lot harder.
Well, I mean, we can get real deep into this, right? So, taken from me being a tradesman, and I do a lot of side work, you know, is that person that calls 15 different guys to get quotes on getting work done for free and then never get any work done. Did that person just steal those 15 people contractors' time? You know,
So this is actually something the Talmud talks about, and Orthodox Jews will not go window shopping. They will not go into a store unless they intend to buy something, because that's getting the person's hopes up and, um, in a way, stealing from them.
right. Yeah, that's my point. We look at it like, I didn't take that 99-cent candy bar. Oh, hell, it $2.99 candy bar now. I didn't take that from the store, so I'm good to go. But then you sit and talk to somebody while you're on the clock and don't think about the hourly wage that you just stole from your boss man, right? When you're talking about non-work related stuff, hey, you know, and it's just strange hearing that kind of stuff from a Christian when we got Matthew 5 talking about, if you even look at a woman with lust, you committed adultery. If you hate your brother, you've murdered him in your heart. And it's like, if we're going off that principle, I don't see how you could say stealing or killing, not stealing, not killing is easy.
Yeah, I think I've also thought that the Noahide laws like are we take them for granted so much that I think they're um, like they're more part of our regular lives and the assumptions that we have. I mean, Christians follow the Noahide laws effectively, like a lot of them, most of them, um, pretty rigorously. So I think we maybe underappreciate the degree to which the Noahide laws are like pretty normal for at least most of our civilization today, right? So
Right. Well,
like
that's
just to say like it could like we could be in a world where the Noahide laws are much less followed, and thank God we're not in that world.
Well, I mean, that depends on where you're from, right? If you're from the trailer hood like myself, or from Southside Chicago like some of my buddies, or Appalachia,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, the way I grew up is, if somebody made a sideways comment to you, you better do something about it, or you're gonna be a mark. You're gonna be taken advantage of, and you better do something about it. You better say something, stand up. Don't matter if you're gonna get your butt whooped or not. You better do something about someone talking outside their neck, because next thing you know, somebody's been kicking in your door, stealing your shoes, whatever. Right? So, it's one thing for someone who grew up in a relatively low crime rate area versus people who grew up in poverty. Right? It's a different mindset, I think.
it's true.
So, so this is one of the books that Rabbi Weiner, wrote on the seven Noahide laws, and section 7 is the laws of theft. It has 16 chapters. Chapter 1, laws of theft. Chapter 2, laws of returning things that were stolen. Chapter 3, the prohibition of helping someone steal or having benefit from stealing, or buying things that were stolen, or stealing things inadvertently. Chapter 4, the laws of somebody who uses other people's things to save his own stuff. So
Yeah.
like he really gets into this, and this is what how many pages? Looks like yeah. So all of this is just on stealing.
For Jews, right? Or
No, this is
No, that's
this
for
is
Noahides.
for
oh, I
Noahides.
missed that. Yeah, the Brit Shalom book, the chapter on laws against robbery. There are 28 items, and most of them are pretty straightforward, and I think more commonly known. The one that was apropos for what we were talking about earlier, like it says an employee who does not do his work diligently or does not work during the time for which he is being paid without the knowledge of his employer engages in robbery. However, if his behavior is consistent with accepted practices in his place of employment, it is permissible since his employer is accepting of such practices. So if everyone screws around at work, it's all good.
Right. Well, I mean, you get into the problem of what's screwing around, right? You know,
For 100%. And I think that.
especially.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that in my line of work, button pushing work, especially people who work from home or collaborate differently, they're not like in an office, or they don't work hourly. I mean, just anybody that's salaried, anybody that's and when there's not some kind of a super quantifiable, measurable goal and everything, it can be pretty difficult to sort of suss out, like, am I doing enough?
Right. Well, so I'm in a low level management, right? I have to deal. I'm the glue that holds the building together. I have to talk to all the other managers and my employees and other managers' employees to make sure we're all on the same. I probably lose an hour and a half a day to just having to make sure we're all coordinated on the same page, right? And sometimes things get brought up about families while you're in there. Well, when you're working with people for 40, 50 hours a week, see them more than your family, you have to build a bond. So how much of talking about your family and sharing thoughts about personal things with your coworkers is part of building the bond to where you can be the glue that holds the structure together, right? So yeah, it's something I struggle with on a daily basis.
So one thing Rabbi Mullet said that his rabbi told him was, the first rule of Judaism is be normal. I really like that, because I think be normal, like don't lose your mind over things. It sounds really simple, but having overarching principles like that, I just think it's so important.
Yeah, I can pull the whole Jordan Peterson thing. What's normal? All right, define normal for me.
Yeah, right, but when it comes down to it, okay, if you're working with people and you're, talk to them, like, be a human being, and if afterwards you need to discuss, oh, well, I don't think it's the small things. I don't think it's the, I don't, yeah.
Well, yeah, Jonathan, how does working at home affect you? Right? Is that seem easier or harder?
It it's got its pros and cons. I mean, there's less waste, right? I'm not spending time commuting. I'm not spending time uh, looking busy because everyone's in an office together, or ending up in overly long conversations, just talking about weekend plans with people, right? So there's just fewer distractions that I think are lead to lower productivity in an office setting. That said, you got to really work to build that rapport that you're talking about, build the trust with your teammates, and that actually requires like more thoughtful, deliberate, social kind of meetings. Just spending like actually carving out time explicitly just to like get to know each other, and not
Right.
always be about work. And so I don't know. It requires a different mindset. There's obviously distractions around the house. The kids or somebody delivers something. There's just there's things I could mow the lawn or whatever, right? Like, um, but there's also the flexibility. So it's like you get greater flexibility, you have greater responsibility. I think like you have to manage your time just more tightly because you're not sort of just showing up between a 9 to 5 office environment where you get credit just for showing up in some cases.
This is
Right.
why I
Well,
like jobs where you just get paid for how much work you do.
Yeah, I mean, like it's funny because like sales is that kind of job, even though it has its reputation of just being like a glad handing grift. But like, I mean, those people are managed tightly according to quotas, and they know exactly what they need to do, and um, like same with people who work on by the hour, like tradespeople who can just say, hey, I came over here and it took me 2 hours to fix your toilet, and this is my hourly rate, and here you go, here's your bill, and I right off into the sunset. So um, some of us button pushers have it a little more. It's more complicated because writing code or the output that we have is not a consistent cadence, and a lot goes into the quality of that work. And so if I'm researching things, am I working, or am I learning, or what am I doing? How am I contributing?
well,
Um,
so I have two things to add to that. One, when everything is being written down, right? If most of your communication is in black and white,
yeah.
there's so much that can get missed, right? You can miss humor. When I talk, I'm watching people's body language, listening to their tone. You
Mhm.
miss all that in writing. Or at least I do because I can't read worth a damn. But so like I I choose not to try my humor in written form because most time it falls on deaf ears, right? And I miss social cues when things are written down all the time. I don't know if that's prevalent for everybody, but I think communication through, you know, not interpersonal communication is really hard to pull off in my opinion, especially when it's just dots, zeros, and letters, right?
Yeah, yeah. It takes a lot of extra effort. I mean, we have a lot of meetings, video conference meetings and stuff, but that's also not quite the real thing of being in a room together. But I think it's 80% of it.
Yeah, and my other point about sales. So as someone who is a mechanic who I didn't get to sell my own work, but I worked by what I sold, right? Or what the salesperson sold for me. That gets real difficult, right? Because you can have a bad salesperson that costs you hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars a week. When you're getting paid by the labor time, and they're not doing it correctly, or they're overselling this or that, whatever. So
Hmm.
getting paid by what you do is not always what it's cracked up to be. But at the same token, when you're spending more time, if you're the salesman and the mechanic, you spend a lot of time looking up parts, a lot of time looking up labor, a lot of time talking to people. So you're not able to turn as much time in or do as much work because you're doing stuff that's really not your job. So in certain situations, it's less than ideal all the way around to get paid by the amount of work you do.
Yeah, it's got that too has its drawbacks. I mean, it's nice to just get a salary, right? A
Yeah.
predictable amount of money, and you just kind of work within the loose parameters of what that looks like, right? So, not everybody does well with killing what you eat, but the grass is always greener.
Yeah, but see, it's a lot different for if I'm killing and then eating it versus you shot it, I clean it, and we divide it amongst ourselves. That's a very different process there. You know what I mean?
Sure, that's the miracle of organization, like the fact that we can scale those efforts. Requires the what's the word I'm looking for, of labor.
Division of labor.
Thank you. Yeah, division of labor. Where the left hand doesn't necessarily know what the right hand is doing, but someone's managing that from a higher level of coordination. And I think there's waste in those systems, but that's the only way I think that we get the kind of economies of scale that we see today.
Well,
I
this is
agree.
the whole invisible hand thing, right? With what's his name, Adam Smith,
Right.
and modern economics. A lot of people, Karl Marx, just don't understand how economics works because it's not intuitive. It's weird, but the fact is, the way it works is just amazing, and yeah, it's one of those things that for me was always, when I came to the United States, my big question was, why is the United States so different from Iran, right? That was a question that really haunted me. Like, I wanted to know why things were so different here, and when you try to like pop open that hood and see what's underneath it, it's confusing. Few people can really understand it. And what's even more problematic is, so when when you say, like, okay, that's not how I program your computer or whatever, people will believe you. But when somebody says, no, that's not how politics works, or that's not how economics works, everybody has an opinion, and nobody thinks that, like, there's an actual mechanics and a reality to it.
Well, our world's so complicated nowadays. You need about 50 different people with 50 different mindsets to get anything accomplished, right? A lineman thinks different than a mechanic does. A programmer is going to think different than a doctor does. Insurance salesman is going to think different than a financial advisor is going to. So we have a lot of different types of mindsets, a lot of specialties, all blending in together, trying to figure out how our individual code is going to translate out into the world. And I know you can talk to somebody that's in the same field you're in, and you can carry on a conversation, and that conversation will look very different if you try to have that conversation with someone that's not in the field. So I think that's a lot to do with it. And yeah, there's
And
like
you
y'all were.
can tell if somebody actually knows what they're talking about in your field or not.
Yeah, within about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because we try to quantify and measure so many things so kind of objectively, like the bureaucrat. We bureaucratize things, and that ends up sometimes, I think, getting in the way of being able to make qualitative judgments and assessments, right? Like, I can talk to somebody about things that I'm an expert in and know within minutes whether or not they know what they're talking about, to Jacob's point. Yet, if there's a game or a system of trying to ascertain that knowledge, that can be gamed, and somebody who I would otherwise know in 2 minutes as a bozo can get through the process with flying colors. And that's a frustrating outcome of this sort of mechanization of all of our big systems and the way we just try to turn everything into objective data analysis. For instance, we lose the capacity to like intuit and judge things from that place of kind of the unknowable or the inscrutable.
Well, it's the place of credentials. Somebody could have a credential and be like a supposed expert on something, and unfortunately that doesn't really mean that person really does know what they're talking about, and that's what bothers me.
Right. Well, I like to call it an empirical thought process, right? If everything, if we use, let's say, science to judge if this is true or that's true about everything, we're screwed, right? If we're trying to use data to control every judgment and every thought process, data can be manipulated real easy. And there's a spiritual aspect to all this, but there's also a hands-on, right? When back in the day when I was in new construction a long time ago, the Army Corps of Engineers, those guys were smart as hell, but when they got on a job site, they had no idea what was going on, and they were dumb, right? At least to us, and then to them, we were dumb because what they wanted to do didn't work in the real world, and what we wanted to do didn't work on paper.
Trey, your mic is really loud.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what to do. Do you hear that dinging?
We hear every time your hand moves.
Okay, I'll try to be more quiet. I went to a cult. It's pretty sick.
Which cult?
I went to the Yellow Deli. They had amazing food.
Billy, when you're not talking, if you could mute yourself, the thing's kind of, the echo is kind of distracting. This is what I hear about the Yellow Deli. Where it's in Santa Monica or something?
It's in San Diego.
San Diego? That's the closest Yellow Deli?
Yes.
Yeah, and when did you go?
I went right now. You can see my images on the Discord. It was so weird, but
San
so sick.
Diego? What are you doing in San Diego? Oh, today's one of your days off, right?
Yeah. I'm going surfing this weekend, so I'm going on a surf trip, and I was in San Diego, and I was like, guys, I'm going to be late. I'm going to the Yellow Deli, and they had no idea what that was.
I see zero pictures on the Discord.
Maybe still uploading. If they're not on, I'll post them on again. But basically, like, I got a whole private room to myself. I said I wanted a table for one, right? And it was this guy. He had like a name like Ashroth or some sort of like biblical name, like. Yeah. And he, like, I was talking to him, and he said he was from Spain, and they had a commune in Spain, and he moves in between Spain and this little like tiny coffee shop because I guess the coffee shop is so productive. But like everything was made by them. Like all the tables were hand done, all the leather was hand done, all the wood was polished, and it looked like I was traveling back to like the 1800s. Like, and it was like amazing. Like every single thing was like beautiful, everything like that. And just for this like little tiny restaurant. The conversations were super awkward with the guy who like sat me down and everything. It was very much a start-stop. He didn't tell me anything about like the 12 tribes religion or anything like that, but like it was just like, oh, how are you? Good. But he would keep trying to have a conversation with me, except it'd be stop. And then I went into the gift shop, and same thing, start-stop conversation, which I guess isn't surprising. You know, they're not from here, so.
They're also trying not to be crazy evangelical to drive people away and be annoying. At the same time, the whole reason they're there is because they believe this is their way of evangelizing, and it is their way of evangelizing. That's how they
Well,
grow as a cult.
well, I don't even think they're. I think that would be closer to the Amish, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, honestly, I think calling them a cult is a bit much.
I have their tracks if you want to get it. I took 3 of them.
You're well on your way to becoming a member.
I am.
Going from the Witnesses to the Yellow Deli cult with a stopover as a Noahide on the way.
That'd be great. Can I? I mean, being a Noahide and being a 12 tribe is like sort of the same thing. Like I feel like you can. Isn't there like an overlapping Venn diagram there?
I mean, from what I've seen, the only thing that's kind of weird about them is they think they know Hebrew, but they don't actually bother to learn it. Like they place a lot of importance on Jewish stuff, but it's obvious that everything they have is from before the internet, when you could actually get real information. Like, I understand back in like the 60s and 70s, if you barely know Hebrew and you have your pseudo Hebrew stuff. But these days, I mean, you could just go online and actually learn Hebrew. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, they do like. I don't know. You know what? They made it weirded out for me because I did take a picture in front of the sign with like a little selfie. So I would not be surprised if that's why they were weirded out a little bit, which makes sense. Not gonna criticize them for that. But I think they do beat people. Like they do beat like their children and everything like that. So that isn't really on the plus.
I don't know if the beatings are like as crazy as that's one of the things that I just don't trust. When you get people who are not normal Christians being called cults by Christians, I don't know how much I automatically assume I believe all of the stuff people say about them. Like,
Maybe.
I'm skeptical.
What about that? Orthodox Jewish commune in like the Bahamas or whatever?
Oh yeah, so those guys, they're definitely crazy.
Why?
I mean, they're not part of the Orthodox Jewish community. They never really have been. They have all kinds of crazy beliefs, and yeah, I mean, didn't they end up murdering their cult leader or something? I forget their name right now.
I think it's more.
Lev Tahor.
Yeah, I thought that they just negligence. That basically,
no.
like they didn't really have medicine. They didn't really have all these things, so people were dying.
Yeah, but I mean, within Orthodox Judaism, not going to doctors, like that is like really strange. So here's the Wikipedia article, and as we know, Wikipedia always gets everything right. Yeah, so I think their leader like died swimming or something, and they have all kinds of weird stuff. There are documentaries about them, a lot apparently. Yeah, they're just really weird and extreme, and I mean, there's a reason there's only been like 200 of them, and they run around like they have to move from country to country constantly. Yeah, he drowned in a river in Mexico in 2017, and it's not really clear how he drowned. It's like, these people are weird.
You've been swimming for 40 years. Suddenly you drown. Weird.
No
Um,
idea.
He must have had
Look up the 12
contact
tribes
with the Clintons.
Wikipedia.
Hey, what were you saying, Billy?
He must have had contacts with the Clintons.
Got suicided?
Yeah, that probably so. Hey, but one point I'd like to add, when you have an insular group, things are going to continue to get weirder and weirder. You have to be able to be challenged from the outside from time to time to hone in your crazy, because your crazy will transplant onto other people around you.
But here's the thing about the Yellow Deli. They are insular, right? Like, the only time they interact with the real world is when they're giving people delicious, lattes and, breakfast Doritos. Isn't that insular?
I mean, they're still having, I mean, when you have so Lev Tahor, they were like going and hiding out in the middle of the rainforest in countries really far away from any Jewish community or any community, and not talking to anybody. That's crazy insularity. Not like, oh, we're just living together and running a deli together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're just trying. The Orthodox are kind of weird, so you're like, well, the Orthodox can't be too weird, so I have to find something that's below that. Or is that not true?
Lev Tahor was crazy ultra Orthodox. They were not. These people were crazy.
But I guess we should go back to this. Like, what is your definition of a cult? Because this is sort of important. Because, like, would Waco not be a cult? Because, like, technically they were in Texas. They weren't, like, in a super remote area. You could probably go up to them. You know what I mean? They had their own little commune.
Actually, so James Tabor, and he knows much more about Waco than I do. And he's not in any way crazy. He actually thinks that, like, what happened at Waco was basically just the mishandling of the federal government. He really does.
Yeah, he's got a video on it. It's really good. I've watched it.
He's got multiple videos. He's testified before Congress about it. He thinks what happened in Waco was, like, just the fault of bad governments not understanding how to deal with apocalyptic groups.
I gotta watch the video, but wasn't David Koresh? He had a record. He shot I forgot Seventh-day Adventists. I think, am I wrong that the Branch Davidians came from the Seventh-day Adventists?
They did.
He was either that or the Mormons.
Adventists, but I'm not aware that David Koresh was ever violent. I mean, if he was, I guess he was.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know.
Yeah, he got into a shootout.
He
got into a shootout. Look it up. I believe it was either him or someone very closely connected to him, and then they started hanging out in the compound. That's why they went into the compound.
You might be thinking of Ruby Ridge. That was a different.
No, I don't think I'm talking about Ruby Ridge.
I mean, I'm looking. Seventh-day Adventists.
I remember when the Waco thing took off. I was actually living in Gatesville, Texas, which was about 35 miles away when all that was going on. I'm just gonna default to they were slightly crazy, and the government just don't know how to handle slightly crazy. All right, but I'm sorry to anybody who's in the government, but I lived on military bases for a good portion of my life, and most of the government police officers I've come in contact with, and a lot of government employees they're scary. They're scared. They're scared of everything, and they overreact. My personal opinion. So, but,
Yeah, the only thing I see is he apparently had multiple wives and like 12 kids from several wives, but I don't see anything violent about Koresh.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I remember watching a video that was talking about how the Branch Davidians were created, and then there was basically a scuffle between the head of the Branch Davidians and another one where there was an actual shootout. I need to look that up. So if I don't have any evidence for it, you can ignore it.
Well, generally, whenever you say something, I assume it's wrong.
Well, I don't have a computer to prove you wrong. So
even if it is correct, my question would be time frame, right? In the empirical society that we live in, just because somebody did something silly years ago doesn't mean that they're going to do something silly now, or that's even cause for handling people with adult gloves, right? Just because you knock somebody out 20 years ago doesn't mean that you're going to mishandle people today or now. So we need to be real careful how we judge people's history.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. I think there's a lot of uh, offense archaeology and stuff, and you go and you find something that someone was accused of many years ago, and suddenly that becomes proof of something. But yeah,
Right. Well, I mean,
but
if you just look at my history, right? You look at my history and where I come from. If people judged me just by who I was and not who I am now, I would not be able to do some of the things that I've done and save some of the lives, physically save some of the lives that I have saved. If I was judged solely by my record from 14 to 21, there would be 3 people not alive today, you know, because I would not be allowed to do the things that I do. So, that's just maybe I'm biased on that point, right? But this is what it is.
Cassandra says, if I remember right, David Kay could have been arrested easily if the problem was him because he was often in town. Yeah, I mean, James Tabor really changed my thinking regarding Waco. Um, I thought it was closer to Jonestown, but James Tabor, despite my criticisms I have of him, obviously I don't agree with everything he says or all of his conclusions. He's a pretty straight laced thinker. He's pretty, he's nothing crazy, and he is like one of the best known experts on uh, yeah, on Waco.
Hey, let's be honest. Anybody who is a expert in early Christianity, first and second century, is an expert in zombie cults. Just saying.
So this is the thing. James Tabor, like,
Wait, no, I have a retort. You can't say that, Billy, because anybody who is an expert on early Judaism is an expert on child sacrifice. That's a bad argument, Billy.
I disagree with you on that completely. Where is your archaeological proof that that the entire
Sacrifice?
Judaism
Then they do,
had
I think, on your points.
sacrifice? Huh?
Well, to respond to that, I would say that would be a Second Temple retribution, and that would be not in line with the many editors and authors of the Old Testament.
Right, but you're saying you're saying the whole of Judaism. How? Where is your?
No, I would say the beginning of it.
Judaism. The beginning of it. What proof do you have to say that? See,
okay,
I have,
yeah,
hold on.
Trey listens to Destiny. You can't expect him to make logical arguments.
Right,
Jacob
but-
listens to James Tabor, who thinks that Jesus' father was a Roman guard. So get out of the face.
Okay, but here's the simple fact. Here's the simple fact of the matter. We have a person that died and was raised again. That's a zombie, and people worshipped him. That's zombie worship. 101 definition. You can't argue that.
No, that's not true. Because again, where does zombie come from?
I have
no idea where the word
Enlighten
zombie
me, young
comes from.
sir.
Zombie comes from Jamaica, where basically they would give dead people. They would use dead people as basically magical slaves, and the way to free them was you would give them stone.
Okay.
My-
So what you're saying
I don't-
is what you're saying is I'm taking a modern concept and applying it to 2,000 years ago. That I must be wrong. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so everything that comes out of your mouth must be wrong because you're taking modern what happened in the last 5 years and applying it to everything you know, right?
How?
Right? Well, I mean, how old are you? How much lived experience do you have? I mean, you're living off of other people's
Hold up.
experience. You're living off other people's ideas and thought processes. I'm doing the same thing.
No, Billy. That's not a good argument. That's not a good argument. I'm using scholars who are using the words and how they use them and applying to those times.
Okay, this may be the dumbest argument that there's ever been on my channel. And that's
I'm
saying
sorry. He's using handpicked scholars that fit his ideological background just so he can prove a point. We all do it. It's okay. I just want him to understand his bias the same with the rest of ours. You're just as guilty as the rest of us, man. You know. So yeah.
You know what? I'll be proven wrong. How many scholars agree that early Israelites did child sacrifice? And that they moved from child sacrifice to animal sacrifice? If it's not the majority, then I'll lose the opinion.
Well, I have no idea what you mean by early Israelites, and frankly, you're moving into the real depths of prehistory. So, most anthropologists would say, as far as I know, that pretty much every society practiced child sacrifice. And it was the Hebrew society, which was one of the ones that moved away from it. Frankly, I mean, I don't know if outside of Abrahamic society we have a culture that moved away from child sacrifice. I don't know.
I'm going off the definition. From what I understand, and I could be totally wrong, and I know Stephen DeYoung has some criticisms of it, but what I understand is that basically a group of Egyptians pretty much exited out of Exodus, and then they mixed with the Canaanites. And basically they had a polytheistic understanding of God, and then they moved to a monotheistic understanding of God. And then later on they retrofitted and came up with these stories further on in time. And the Canaanites pretty much did child sacrifice and everything like that, and they don't want to admit that many of these stories involve child sacrifice, so they retrofitted it to animal sacrifice. Now, that is the secular understanding, but from what I understand, this is what most scholars who work in Old Testament studies agree on. Am I incorrect or correct on that?
As I understand it, you're trying to figure out things that most, what I would say, competent people would simply say, this is not something we have a lot of information about. Like, talking about something that's prehistoric that we just don't have a lot of information about, like, you can find most scholars, but most of those scholars are people who should know better than to say anything at all.
Okay. That's okay. So all I'm saying is that if you're going to use James Tabor, I could use the same thing to say that child sacrifice.
No. See, this is the difference.
Oh wait, no, actually, I'm going to take that back. That was stupid. I'll admit that was stupid. You are not using a consensus of scholars. You're using an individual scholar's argument. Those are two different points. But I am correct in saying that scholars, the majority of Old Testament studies, would agree with the child sacrifice point, right?
This is you, like, okay, I would say that most people who are willing to talk about such things, by virtue of the fact that they are making statements, show that they're ignorant people with no intellectual humility who should just shut up. If you don't have information, it's best, like, don't make definitive statements about things you have no information about. We have no information about what things were like 5,000 years ago.
Okay. But Billy's point was I'm handpicking scholars. And my point was, no, I'm not handpicking scholars. That's all I'm saying. We can critique their methodology.
Okay, can we move on to something else?
Fine.
This
Let's talk about the 12 tribes, Yellow Delhi.
I actually want to know about you going surfing. Where are you going surfing?
I'm going surfing in San Diego, pretty much for Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Why?
I don't think the waves will be good. The surf group that I'm part of just picked it.
You're part of a surf group?
Yeah, a church surf group.
Ah, so you have a surfer cult.
Yeah, I do have a surfer cult.
I see. Why'd they pick San Diego? I mean, is the surf better there than in Los Angeles or further north?
Technically, yes. There are better breaks, but it depends on the season and the people we're going with are newbies. So I take them to like Trestles, which is like probably one of the best. Yeah, I'd say one of the best like surf breaks. I don't think they're going to be able to handle it because there's going to be a lot of people. Like in Trestles, there's about like 30 to 50 people on one day trying to get it.
So is it just Los Angeles surfers who are really territorial, or are you going to have trouble when you go with people who are like locals being like, what are you doing here? And trying to slash your tires?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, like every sport is territorial. Like, if you go to Hawaii and you show up to a beach, like, don't be surprised. And, like, if you cut somebody off, let's say you're in Hawaii and you're a haole, yeah, I would not be surprised if you got, like, beat up.
Why are surfers so violent?
Because, like, good waves are part of, like, a good woman that isn't, like, you know, whiny. It's rare to come by, and it only lasts for a little while.
Okay, that was some analogy, Trey.
I came up with that on the spot. Give me props.
Yeah. Like a good woman who isn't whiny.
It's rare and only lasts for a short while.
Yes, sir. Okay.
See, now you can't call me woke. You can't call me woke anymore, okay? Even though I support, we have to destroy the patriarchy and, equal pay and all that blah, blah, blah stuff.
I see, said the blind man.
You say so.
Okay, what are we going to talk about now?
Jonathan been mad quiet.
I've been figuring out how to programmatically turn all of these audio files into videos with a static image so I can upload them to YouTube so Father Eric can listen to them while he writes a paper on Monday. So I was trying to distract myself from your inane conversation with Billy.
Have you tried FFM, Peg? Have you been looking there?
Oh yeah, that's definitely what I'm doing. It's working. I'm just I'm wrestling with container formats and stuff and like encoders and what's installed on my computer, blah blah blah. But I've made some progress.
Okay.
So wait. One thing to Jonathan. You know there's a Python API that allows you to automatically upload to YouTube if you want to.
Well, I need to first run a script that converts all of these files into the videos, and then I can upload them in batch, right? Well, just send me a link to whatever you're talking about in Discord. I'll look at it.
Okay. Do you look? You sure you're not able to upload MP3s, and it'll allow a still image? You may want to look at the YouTube API for that.
Oh yeah, if they have
because it could be possible.
Sure, if you can just pair an audio file and an image, and it will make it for you, then I'm, I guess, wasting my time. I've spent literally 10 minutes doing this, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, thanks, Trey.
I'll look. I think they may be able to automatically create an image for them.
I'll take your free labor.
So this is Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, talking about should Muslims condemn October 7th. I haven't listened to this yet.
Oh boy.
But from the comments, I can already tell this is going to be disgusting.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Jake, the Muslim metaphysician. And today I have a very interesting episode for you guys. I pray that everyone is doing well. And let us pray for our Palestinian brothers and sisters who are being oppressed. And we know exactly what's happening. And I'll delve a bit more into that in this video. But this is a controversial, some may say, topic. What is the topic today? The title of the video is called Should Muslims Condemn October the 7th? And for those who don't know what happened October the 7th, then this video is probably not for you because I'm not going to be giving a history lesson of what just happened 1 month ago. But people know what happened on October the 7th. And the question before Muslims, and I'm going to expand it beyond just Muslims, people in general, even non-Muslims, should we condemn October the 7th? Now, there's been some recent controversy over this. Of course, one of the common tactics, hold on a second, I'm just looking in the live chat. You're saying I should read some of the comments. Unfortunately, guys, this is a live stream, but I'm not interactive to the point where I'm going to be reading the live chat and interacting with much of what you guys have to say. If you have a comment, question, or concern, please send it as a super chat or super sticker. Otherwise, largely, I'm sorry to
Can I say something?
I ignore the live chat because
Sure.
It's just interesting how like he's acting as if this is like the same thing on like a criticism of the Quran. Like he has the same tone. Do you guys notice that? Like it's. Am I crazy for thinking that?
I have no idea what you mean by that.
I'm saying that if we looked up another one of his live streams, just talking about like just a random Quran passage or whether the Trinity is true, he's gonna have the same cadence.
Okay.
That's a little weird, right? For the events that.
Why is that weird?
Because if there's, if Hamas, I don't know the current number, but Hamas killed like 1,000 people, and he's talking about the same way I would talk about, the triune God. That kind of sounds disrespectful, right?
No.
Okay,
I have no
that's just
idea
me.
what to
Anyways.
say. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of nonsense and foolishness going on. But anyway, getting to the point, and I hope that you guys are able to hear me because I'm using a new pair of headphones and microphones. So I hope the sound is coming in okay. If there's any problems with the sound, please let me know. Now, there's been some controversy over some comments made on Twitter regarding some statements that Brother Daniel Hakikachu has made. And I'm going to address those in just a second. But even before we get to that, we see a common tactic by the Western media is that, first of all, they rarely invite the pro-Palestinian voice on their platforms. They don't want it voiced. They don't want it to be heard. But besides that, when they do, their opening part of the dialogue or discussion is to get Muslims to immediately condemn what happened on October 7th and condemn October 7th as a day in general, and condemn Hamas and condemn all these different groups. And the part of the problem is the way in which this condemnation, either question or demand, is made. Part of the problem is the way in which it's framed. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. But let me just play. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to play a recent clip that happened on the Patrick Bet David podcast, which Patrick Bet David runs a popular podcast, which if you guys don't know, Brother Daniel and myself were on in September, where we had a debate and discussion on Christianity and Islam with two claimed to be Christians. Anyway, I'll let you guys be the judge of that. But anyway, Patrick Bet David interacted with Daniel Hakikachu on Twitter, and he also recently made some comments on his channel, on his live stream, basically reiterating his same concern. So let's see what that was, and we can go from there, inshallah. So here it is. Hope you guys are able to hear it just fine.
Yesterday, I got into a conversation with a guy on Twitter. I'm like, do you really believe this about, Muslims and Hamas? You seem like a reasonable guy. How could you say any Muslim that, condemns what Hamas did, you're not a true Muslim? Right? Any Muslim that condemns what Hamas did is not a true Muslim. And I actually like this guy. I've had him on before. I said, your language here, there's no ability to reason. You're convinced there is nothing wrong that was done about October 7th. A Muslim who condemns October 7th as a hypocrite and a traitor to Islam. Okay. So I'm like, I got calls from Muslims saying, Pat, this is not us. This is not, and I'm like, I don't even think this is him. Because I've talked to this guy before. Mm-hmm. But to me, the point is this. People are starting to realize they don't want World War III. They just want a good economy. They want to have a job. They don't want to be gaslit. They don't want to be manipulated. They don't want to be brainwashed. They want to be free. They want to go watch a good movie without worrying about what's going to happen with these movies. They want to watch media and just give me the news. What the hell is going on? Stop telling me like bullshit that's a lie for 3.5 years and then you move on. The other day.
Get $700 back on Google Pixel 8 Pro on Google Fi Wireless. No trade-in required.
Okay, so after that, he goes on to talking about something else. But that was, I believe, in his most recent live stream, where he was referencing what we'll see here in just a second from Twitter, his interaction with Daniel. So here's the tweet which he was referencing. Daniel says, and this was posted on November the 6th, just a couple days ago. He says, remember, the only people condemning October 7th are bloodthirsty Zionists. A Muslim who condemns October 7th is a hypocrite and traitor to Islam. A non-Muslim who condemns October 7th does not believe Palestinians have a right to live and defend themselves against Israeli ethnic cleansing. So that's what Brother Daniel had to say. And let's see what Patrick Bet David, he basically quoted this tweet and said, Daniel, this is an extreme position to take. Do you really believe this? And he puts the finger down, which is, he's quoting, a Muslim who condemns October 7th is a hypocrite and a traitor to Islam. So Daniel responds and he says, hey, at Patrick Bet David, hope you're well. Is it extreme to think of the Americans attacking the occupying British as legitimate in the lead up to the American Revolution? Who defines extreme? The British consider the Americans terrorists. What I've said is only extreme, right? What I've said is only extreme if you allow Zionists to frame the whole issue. And we'll get back to this framing issue. Israel has claimed zero evidence that Palestinians engaged in a senseless slaughter of random civilians and babies on October 7th. This cannot be
okay, so this is I just have to point this out. Jake the Muslim metaphysician, it cannot believe what Hamas says about themselves. He cannot believe what Hamas says about themselves, right? It's not like Hamas is saying, no, we didn't do this, right? He just can't believe, and I have to say this probably has a lot to do with the fact that Jake doesn't actually know Arabic. He comes from an American background, and he's so cynical of the Western media that he thinks that Hamas denies, like, just murdering babies, just openly murdering babies, right? And Hamas doesn't. Hamas does not deny this, right? And he can't believe that. He can't comprehend that. It's just beyond his capacity to comprehend who he's in bed with. And this is a level of naivete you see in the United States that's really unfortunate. I mean, it's really unfortunate. Yeah.
Accepted without independent verification from recognized independent international bodies. As we know, Israel has blatantly lied about 40 beheaded babies. The hospital bombing, they lie repeatedly. So why should we accept a narrative they are pushing that attempts to justify?
So this is the idea he has. Israel says Hamas did this, and Hamas says no. Whereas there's no dispute of facts here. Israel says Hamas did this, and Hamas says, yes, we did this. Right? But here come the apologists like Jake and Daniel Pikachu, and they can't, well, Daniel Hagigatu, he actually knows. He's a propagandist. Jake is just ignorant and naive.
And let's just go slightly further. Okay. That attempts to justify their continued ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. We should understand October 7th as a military operation by an occupied people against an occupying force. That has been systematically genociding them. The objective way to understand October 7th, and is actually, this is the objective way to understand October 7th, and is actually based in international law. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Okay, so then we'll get from here, Patrick Bet-David's response to this comment from Brother Daniel. He says, your response lacks signs of the willingness to reason. It sounds like you're only speaking to your audience rather than willing to entertain an opposing one. If your goal is to fire up only your base, then you're being successful. Daniel then responds, Patrick, I respect you because you are willing to entertain politically incorrect ideas and think them through logically. That's what makes you a unique and genuine voice that people love. My intent was simply to explain my position, and I'm always more than happy to hear counter arguments. So, I mean, Daniel didn't explicitly say, but one thing I want people to note is that instead of directly engaging with Brother Daniel's response, Patrick Bet-David just says your response has the signs of unwillingness to reason, right? And then accuses him of basically saying, well, if you're just looking to entertain and fire up your base, then you got it, but that's all you're doing. So Daniel gave a response that Patrick didn't really engage with other than just generally criticizing his response. He didn't actually deal with the analogy that Daniel made with Britain and the Americans. He didn't deal with the analogy and what the point of the analogy was that Daniel was trying to make, which is, I mean, rather unfortunate. But some people may be wondering, well, Brother Jake, I mean, of course we support the Palestinians. Of course we support the Palestinian cause. But
of course,
why it be so obvious that we should condemn October the 7th? And why is it that anyone who chooses not to condemn October the 7th is labeled a hypocrite by Brother Daniel? Has Brother Daniel stepped out of line? Is he wrong? Do we need to correct him? Well, I want to submit to you that not only would I agree with what Brother Daniel has said, I will attempt to defend it here on this video, and I will also supplement my own defense with showing you other non-Muslims that are basically having the same sentiments and actually use the exact same language as Brother Daniel, that calling anyone who chooses to condemn what happened on October 7th and October 7th today, that you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. Now, but before I get to who that other person is, I have to address the elephant in the room. And I spoke briefly to Brother Daniel about this, so I think I have a decent understanding of what he said and why he said it and what the context of what he was trying to drive home. Why is it that Muslims should not condemn October the 7th? And why is it that anyone who does so should be deemed a hypocrite? Well, the reason is this. The idea is that, and the idea behind condemning October 7th is this. October 7th is a random attack that has taken place by a bunch of quote unquote terrorist group. And because of that, they senselessly and indiscriminately killed civilians, women, and children, not just men and soldiers. They killed and beheaded babies and all this kind of stuff. And they just did it randomly out of nowhere. That's not the case. The honest reality is that for people who don't know the history and the trajectory of Palestine over the past 75 plus years, is that Palestine and the Palestinian people have been dealing with tyranny and oppression, and actually from the opposite side, indiscriminate, disproportionate, without justification and reason, slaughter, displacement of their people. And so we have to understand October 7th in the context of it being a response to that tyranny and oppression against those people for 75 plus years. Hundreds of...
He is completely outside of the actual facts of the matter. These are the types of things you can only say if you don't speak Arabic, you haven't lived in the Middle East, you don't understand what's going on. And it happens. I mean, I don't know. I really don't see any reason to continue this. His ignorance is honestly shocking. This is not what Hamas themselves say. Here. This is Hamas themselves.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها، لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية، يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك إحنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك. بكل...
See, he's not saying we're oppressed, we're right. It's a whole different narrative than what they would never, ever, ever frame themselves the way that Jake framed them. If they saw themselves as the oppressed weaklings that Jake is trying to make them look like, they would quit, because they don't come from a culture of viewing the weak and the oppressed as people who should be defended at all. Like, they're like, oh, if we can kill your babies, let me kill your babies. Like, why wouldn't I do that?
كل قوة إنه إسرائيل لازم نأدبها، وحنأدبها مرة ثانية وثالثة، ومش هذا حتكون طوفان الأقصى أول مرة، لا حتكون ثانية وثالثة ورابعة، لأنه إحنا لدينا إصرار ولدينا قرار ولدينا إمكانيات أن نقاتل نعم. ونحارب، لكن كما قلت لك بدنا ندفع ثمن. نعم إحنا مستعدين، معلش بدي أقول لك بشكل واضح، إحنا اسمنا شعب الشهداء ونفخر أن نقدم شهداء. إحنا لا نريد أن نمس لا بالمدنيين ولا أن نلحق الأذى بهم، لكن أوقات لأنه في تعقيدات في الميدان صارت في منطقة موجودة، وكان هناك في احتفال وكان في سكان وفي منطقة واسعة ليست سهلة على امتداد تقريبا 40 كيلومتر. يجب أن ننتهي.
أن ينتهي وين؟ بقطاع غزة؟
ينتهي إلى لا بتكلم عنه كل الأراضي الفلسطينية.
كل الأراضي الفلسطينية، يعني زوال طبعا. إسرائيل؟
طبعا. وجود إسرائيل غير منطقي. وجود إسرائيل هو اللي بخلق كل هذه الآلام والعذابات والدموع والدماء. هي إسرائيل مش إحنا ضحية الاحتلال، نقطة وآخر السطر. لذلك ما حدا يلومنا، إحنا شو اللي بنعمله في 7 أكتوبر، في 10 أكتوبر، في مليون أكتوبر، إحنا اللي بنعمل مبرر. It is justified، مبررة.
the fact is, I was actually very surprised when I heard him deny being deliberate in murdering civilians. Although obviously he does admit that he murdered civilians. But yeah. Okay. That's all I'm going to say about that. Do you have to believe in the oral Torah to be a Noahide? Ugh, that's a difficult thing. Like I've spoken about, there's various levels of Noahide, from the arguments that, for example, Rabbi Steinsaltz made about Hindus possibly qualifying as Noahides, to full-fledged what Jonathan did when he went before a rabbinic court. It would seem to me that if you are going before a rabbinic court presumes that you must Noachides are allowed to study those parts of the oral law that apply to them. That's for sure. That's definitely the case. Okay, people, I think I am going to end the stream. Talk to you later. See you on the Discord, etc., etc.